My name is Marie J. Crawford, and I am 36 years old. My daughter came home crying and said, "Uncle slapped me because I got an A and his son didn't." I didn't yell. I didn't rush to call anyone. I took photos, took her to urgent care, filed the report, and then made a few quiet phone calls. It was a Thursday, just after 5, when Ava came through the front door with her backpack sliding off one shoulder. She didn't look tired or cranky. She looked wrong. Her face was red, uneven, like the color hadn't settled yet, and there was a faint handprint blooming on her cheek. My mind tried to explain it away before she said anything. A fall? A bump? An accident? She didn't cry. She walked to the couch, sat down, and started pulling out her homework like it was just another day. I sat beside her. She wouldn't look at me. Then she said it, simple and quiet. "Uncle Brad hit me." I waited. Then she added that it was because she got an A on her math test and Jordan didn't, and he got mad and said she was showing off. The room went silent in my head. Brad put his hands on my child. Brad, my sister Megan's husband, the man I tolerated for years, because confrontation was always treated like the real problem in our family. I didn't panic. I documented. I photographed her cheek, then under her chin where bruising was forming, then her shoulder where a darker mark suggested he'd grabbed her. I took her straight to urgent care. The nurse's expression changed the second she saw Ava's face. The doctor was calm and precise. They examined her, asked neutral questions, and documented suspected abuse by a non-parental guardian. Ava asked if she was in trouble. I told her no, again and again, until she believed me. We drove for a while before going home. She asked if Megan would be mad at her. I didn't answer because I didn't know. That night, Ava slept curled against my arm, holding on like she was afraid I'd disappear. I didn't sleep. By morning, I made 3 calls. Child Protective Services with Brad's full name and address and Ava's statement. A family law attorney recommended by a friend who said she'd be at my house at 9 the next morning. And a former neighbor, now in law enforcement, not to ask for favors, only to make sure this wouldn't be minimized. Then we went home and waited. For 2 days, I didn't speak to Megan. I didn't answer her texts asking if Ava could come over. On the 3rd day, CPS called to say Ava had been interviewed at school, and an emergency visit was scheduled for Megan and Brad's house that afternoon. I didn't ask the time. I didn't need to. Just after 5, I heard shouting outside. I stepped onto the porch and saw Brad barefoot on the front lawn in pajama pants, crying on his knees. Megan paced behind him, shaking, clutching her phone. Brad saw me. I didn't wave. I didn't speak. I just watched. The begging kind of looks the same no matter who is doing it. That was only the beginning. The morning after Brad collapsed on the lawn, Megan came to my door. No call, no text, just a knock that sounded unsure of itself. When I opened it, she stood there without makeup, eyes swollen, a hoodie pulled on, like she hadn't bothered to look in the mirror. She walked inside and stopped in the middle of the living room. Not sitting, not pacing, just standing there like she didn't know where to put herself. Then she asked if it was true. Did Ava really say that? Did Brad really hit her? I said yes. I told her exactly what Ava told me, calmly, without dramatics, without cushioning the words. Megan blinked like she didn't recognize the language. Then the excuses came. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Ava took it the wrong way. Maybe Brad was joking and it looked worse than it was. He'd never do that, she said. He might raise his voice, sure, but hit her, not Brad. I didn't argue. I went to the drawer, pulled out the envelope, and handed her the printed photos from urgent care, the cheek, the shoulder, the timestamps. She flipped through them without sitting down, her hands starting to shake. The room stayed quiet long enough for the reality to land. She said she didn't even know who he was anymore. I let that sit. When she asked why I didn't come to her first, I told her I had to protect my daughter, not Brad's reputation, and I didn't have the luxury of wondering if it was true. It was. I had proof. Megan left without saying goodbye. That afternoon, a detective called. CPS had sent over everything, and with the medical report and Ava's statement, they were moving forward. Brad would be contacted for questioning. They asked me to preserve Ava's clothing from that day. I sealed it in a bag and put it in the closet like evidence, because that's exactly what it was. By Friday, Brad had a lawyer. I wasn't surprised. He was the kind of man who believed confidence could rewrite facts. I knew he'd try to make Ava look dramatic, me look bitter, and Megan look confused. By Sunday, the whispers started. An aunt called to say she'd heard something happened, and maybe CPS had been called. She said it gently, like she was offering me a chance to smooth it over. I told her not to call again. Then the messages came. Cousins asking if I was blowing things out of proportion. Someone said kids exaggerate. Another said discipline gets taken out of context. I didn't answer any of them. I focused on Ava. She asked if she ever had to go back to that house. She asked if she could tell Jordan what happened. I told her she didn't owe anyone anything, not even explanations. School made it harder. Jordan told a couple of kids Ava lied about his dad. One repeated it near the monkey bars. A teacher overheard and told Ava to come to the office if anyone made her uncomfortable. Ava didn't cry when she told me. She looked tired. I drove to the school the next morning and sat across from the principal. I explained what happened clearly and calmly. She said all the right things, promised monitoring and support, but we both knew rumors don't disappear just because adults say they should. I wasn't backing down. If anything, I was getting started. And somewhere behind closed doors, Megan was making a decision that was going to change everything. 3 days after the CPS visit and the scene on the lawn, Megan texted me out of nowhere. "Can we talk? Just us." I almost didn't reply. I assumed it would be another attempt to smooth things over, to ask me to slow down, to protect the family from embarrassment. But something about the message felt different. Less defensive, more resigned, like someone who already knew the answer and hated it. I told her we could meet and suggested a diner halfway between our houses. Public, neutral, the kind of place where no one listens too closely. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner booth with a cup of untouched coffee. Her eyes were puffy, her hair pulled back without care. I slid into the seat across from her and waited. She didn't waste time. "I asked Brad to leave," she said. The words landed heavier than I expected. She said she couldn't stop thinking about the photos, about Ava's face, about the way I looked when I handed them to her. That night, after she left my house, she waited until Brad fell asleep and went through his phone. She said she needed to know if there was even a chance I was lying, or if Ava had exaggerated, because if that were true, she could keep pretending. What she found didn't leave room for pretending. Messages between Brad and a coworker, screenshots of Jordan's report card, comments about Ava being a problem, about her ruining Jordan's confidence, about needing to put her in her place. One message said Ava had a smug little face. Another said she was slapworthy. Hearing it made my stomach turn. Megan told me that for the first time in her marriage, she felt afraid of him. Not of what he might do next, but of how little she actually knew the man she lived with. Then she told me something that shifted the ground under both of us. She admitted Brad had hit Jordan twice that she saw. Once after spilling cereal on his laptop. Once after striking out at a baseball game. He shoved Jordan into a wall and called him weak. She saw the bruise and said nothing. Told herself it wasn't that bad. Told herself it was discipline. I asked her why she stayed silent. She stared into the coffee and said she thought she was protecting her son and that she didn't think anyone would believe her if she spoke up. Then she said the part that mattered most. Now I know what I did was keep the door open for it to happen again. I asked if she would testify. She didn't hesitate. Yes, whatever they need. The next day, Megan called the detective and gave a full statement. She handed over messages, described incidents, explained how Brad spoke about Ava like she was a threat. The investigation shifted immediately. That afternoon, the detective asked if Ava could do another interview, this time with a forensic specialist trained to talk to children about trauma. Ava agreed quietly, like she'd been waiting to tell the whole story. She talked about how Brad isolated her from Jordan during visits, how he joked that smart girls turn into lonely women, how he locked her outside in the cold because she answered a math question faster than Jordan. She described the night he grabbed her wrist so hard she dropped her fork and didn't want to eat anymore. Within 24 hours, a no-contact order was issued. Brad was barred from seeing or contacting Ava or Jordan. Megan filed for emergency custody. When Brad was served, he tried to force his way into the house to talk. A neighbor called the police. He wasn't arrested that time, but the message was clear. One more violation and he would be. He was losing control, and for a man like Brad, that was worse than consequences. While all of this unfolded, I wasn't waiting. I was on the phone with attorneys, preparing a civil case in case the criminal one stalled. Megan gave me everything: passwords, documents, a recording she once made during an argument where Brad told her no court would ever believe her over him. She'd been scared for years. She wasn't anymore. The shift became undeniable when Jordan told the school counselor he didn't want to go back to his dad's house. He said he had nightmares, said he couldn't sleep unless his door was locked. That's when the tone changed everywhere. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a pattern, and the system finally started treating it that way. Once Jordan spoke to the school counselor, everything accelerated. The calls from investigators stopped sounding cautious. The emails from attorneys stopped using words like preliminary and alleged. What Brad had done was no longer being framed as a bad moment or a misunderstanding. It was being treated like a pattern. Brad didn't know that yet. He still thought he could control the story if he stayed loud enough, confident enough, patient enough. I learned through my lawyer that Brad had filed paperwork accusing me of manipulating Ava. He claimed I exaggerated injuries, coached her answers, and was punishing him because I never liked him. He suggested Megan wasn't mentally stable and was being influenced by me. Reading it felt surreal, like watching someone describe a distorted version of reality and hoping authority would accept it. Megan read it too. She didn't cry. She didn't call him. She forwarded it to the detective and asked to add to her statement. Then something unexpected happened. An old friend of Megan's reached out late one night, someone she hadn't spoken to in years. She said she'd seen a vague post about Megan needing support and immediately thought of Brad, not because of anything recent, but because of something from long before Megan ever met him. Brad had dated her younger sister years ago. The sister agreed to talk after some hesitation. She said she'd buried that time in her life, but hearing about Ava brought the memories back. She told us Brad did the same things back then, mocked her intelligence in public, isolated her from friends, shoved her during an argument, and told her she made him do it. She never reported it because she was 22 and scared and thought it would ruin her life. She still had a notebook from that time, pages dated and written in her own handwriting, describing incidents that mirrored what Ava and Jordan had described years later. Our lawyer prepared a sworn statement and submitted it as evidence of prior behavior. Brad still believed he was ahead of this. That changed the night Ava came into my room holding her tablet and said someone had just called her. It was a number she didn't recognize. She answered because she thought it was a friend. It was Brad. He told her adults were confused. He said if she told them she was mistaken, everything would go back to normal. He said he missed her. He said he was sorry if he scared her. Ava hung up and started shaking. I called the detective immediately. The number was traced to a prepaid phone bought with cash 2 days earlier. That was enough. The judge didn't need convincing. Brad was arrested the following afternoon for violating the no-contact order and attempting to influence a minor witness. Megan called me afterward. She said he was crying in the driveway when they put him in the car, begging her to tell them it was a misunderstanding. She didn't go outside. That arrest cracked everything open. The prosecutor amended the charges: felony child abuse, witness tampering, aggravated intimidation. The conversation shifted from counseling and probation to sentencing ranges. 10 years was mentioned for the first time. I sat in my kitchen that night after Ava went to bed and realized something unexpected. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I was calm. Brad had spent years believing no one would push back hard enough to matter. He was wrong. The day of the arraignment didn't feel real. Megan and I sat on a hard bench behind the prosecutor, shoulders squared, hands folded, saying nothing because there was nothing left to say. The courtroom was too bright, too cold, like a place designed to strip emotion down to facts. Brad sat across from us in a suit that didn't fit quite right, hair combed carefully, posture stiff. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man who still believed this would blow over if he just waited long enough. He pleaded not guilty, exactly as expected. His attorney stood and spoke slowly, confidently, using words like misunderstanding, family tension, parenting differences. He suggested Ava had been confused by adult conversations, possibly influenced, possibly pressured. He even implied that children sometimes misinterpret discipline. I felt Megan's knee brush mine, a small grounding reminder that we were still here, still steady. Then the prosecutor stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize anything. She laid out the facts one by one. Security camera footage from a neighbor's house played on the screen, showing Ava walking down the driveway the day it happened, one hand pressed to her cheek, steps uneven. The timestamp matched. Then the urgent care photos appeared, the same ones Megan had held in silence days earlier. The doctor's signed report followed, already entered into record. Then came the phone call, the burner phone Brad used to contact Ava after the no-contact order. The judge asked when the call was placed. 2 days after the order. The detective confirmed Ava recognized Brad's voice immediately, even though he tried to disguise it. You could feel the room shift. The judge leaned back. The clerk paused mid-typing. Brad's attorney adjusted his tie, just slightly, like the air had thickened. That still wasn't the worst part. The prosecutor entered the sworn testimony of the woman Brad dated years before Megan, the one who described the same pattern. The slow erosion, the isolation, the shove into a door. The way he convinced her everything was her fault. One line from her statement echoed through the room. He never yells. He just breaks you down slowly until you forget who you were before him. When Megan took the stand, my chest tightened. She didn't defend herself. She didn't minimize. She said she ignored things she shouldn't have. She admitted she believed him when she knew something was wrong. She talked about the bruises on Jordan, the screaming over a baseball game, the fear that crept in quietly and stayed. Then she said the sentence that ended any doubt. I didn't leave because I thought I could protect my son by staying. I was wrong, and I will never make that mistake again. The prosecutor rested. 3 days later, the offer came. 10 years for felony child abuse, witness tampering, intimidation, and violation of a protective order. Brad's attorney tried to negotiate. 5 years, parole eligibility, counseling, the usual last-minute concessions. The prosecutor didn't budge. 10 years or trial. Brad took the deal. When my lawyer called to tell me, I was sitting in my car outside Ava's school, parked in the same spot I always waited during robotics club. Kids ran past the windshield, laughing, backpacks bouncing. Ava was inside, unaware that the man who once made her afraid to answer questions in math class had just agreed to spend the next decade behind bars. I hung up and sat there for a long moment, then cried. Not hard, not loud, just enough to feel something heavy finally lift. That night, I told Ava the truth in the simplest way I could. He's not coming back. You're safe. You never have to see him again. She didn't cry. She asked if we could stop for pizza on the way home. We did. Pepperoni, garlic knots, and a slice of chocolate cake she barely touched, but insisted on ordering. The next day, Megan sent me a photo. Jordan holding a baseball bat, smiling in a new jersey. She said he asked if he could try out again, now that things felt quieter at home. I stared at that picture for a long time. The rest of the family went quiet. A few texts came in. A couple apologies. Most stayed silent. That was fine. What mattered was that Ava laughed again without hesitation. That Jordan slept with his door open. That fear no longer lived in every corner of their lives. Brad is in prison now. 10 years. Parole eligible at 8 if he behaves. His world used to revolve around control and intimidation. Now he's just a number in a place where none of that works. I don't think anyone is crying for him. Ava has a small wall in her room where she pins awards and certificates. Last week, I noticed a new sticky note tucked between them. It said, "I'm not scared anymore." She didn't point it out. She didn't have to. Life feels normal again, not the old normal, but a safer one, quieter, stronger. Peace doesn't feel like silence anymore. It feels like safety, and that is something I will protect at any cost. After the sentencing, time didn't snap back into place the way people expect it to. It stretched. Some days felt ordinary enough that I forgot to brace my shoulders when the doorbell rang. Other days arrived heavy, like my body remembered danger before my mind did. Healing wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It showed up in small permissions I gave myself and Ava without realizing that's what they were. The house changed first, not physically, but in the way it sounded. No more sudden quiet when Ava walked into a room. No more hesitation before she answered questions. She started leaving her bedroom door open at night again. She asked if we could rearrange the furniture, wanted her desk closer to the window, said the light helped her think. We bought a new lamp together. It was blue, her choice. She put it right where she could see it from bed. Megan and I didn't talk much at first. We didn't need to. The work had been done in rooms that didn't require words. When we did start spending time together again, it was simple. Coffee at her kitchen table, sorting mail, going through boxes Brad left behind, the kind of cleaning that isn't really about objects. We found more notes than I expected. Lists, timelines, little calculations he'd made about Jordan's grades and punishments. It was unsettling how organized it all was. Megan bagged everything carefully and handed it to me without looking up. "Keep it," she said, "just in case." I understood what she meant. Jordan changed too, slowly, like someone learning a new posture. He stopped flinching when adults raised their voices, even if they were just excited. He started leaving his bedroom door open at night. He asked if he could try out for baseball again. When he struck out once at practice, he laughed instead of shrinking. Megan texted me that night and said she hadn't heard that laugh in years. School followed up with Ava for the last time through a victim advocate. It wasn't court. It wasn't adversarial. It was a quiet conversation to finalize protective orders. Ava handled it with a steadiness that didn't belong to a child her age. When it was over, she asked for milkshakes. Chocolate with sprinkles. She said it was the best one she'd ever had. I knew it wasn't about the milkshake. The family recalibrated around us. A few reached out, awkward apologies wrapped in discomfort. Some stayed silent. That was fine. Silence didn't scare me anymore. It no longer meant something bad was about to happen. It just meant there was nothing left to say. My dad called one evening, weeks after everything settled. We hadn't spoken much during the case. He's from a generation that avoids domestic truths until they become unavoidable. He didn't stay on the line long. He said I did the right thing. He said he was proud of me. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't erase anything. But it mattered. As for Brad, he sits where control doesn't work the way it used to. 10 years is a long time to be forced into quiet. I don't think he's adjusting well. I don't think anyone is surprised. His world relied on no one pushing back hard enough to matter. Now the pushback is permanent. Ava joined the mathletes. She asked if Jordan could come watch one day. She pinned a certificate to her wall and, beside it, a small sticky note that read, "I'm not scared anymore." She didn't announce it. She didn't need to. Safety had become something she felt, not something she had to explain. Megan started therapy. So did I. Not because we were broken beyond repair, but because we refused to carry what never belonged to us again. Some nights we sit on her porch and listen to the neighborhood sounds. No tension, no scanning for threats, just ordinary life reclaiming space. Peace didn't arrive as silence. It arrived as safety. It arrived as laughter without checking who was listening. It arrived as sleep without rehearsing tomorrow's defenses. It arrived as the certainty that when someone crosses a line, we know exactly what to do. We are changed, bruised in ways that won't show up in photos, stronger in ways that will. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this. Protecting your child doesn't end when the danger is gone. It continues in the quiet choices that make sure fear never gets comfortable again.